everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Laura, and today we're going to talk about resumes. I'm going to keep piggybacking off of my previous topics, which related to internships, getting a job, easy peasy stuff like that. To provide some context on why resumes are so important, I like to think of resumes as basically the window to your soul in the context of job searches. So to help contextualize this a little bit, I like to think of the resume as basically the window to your soul in the context of job searches. But if you're applying to hundreds of places and you're never hearing back, then I'd likely say that your resume is going to be the culprit of your problems. But the best part of it all is you can fix your resume in a matter of hours and get your resume looking great in a day or two. Let's jump right into how you can fix your resume and start hearing back from companies. Tip number 1, if you're not a freshman, cut the high school mentions. This is a catch-all tip that I learned after my first few resumes, but I really realized that a lot of what I did in high school wasn't directly transferable to my college experiences. You definitely don't need to mention your high school GPA, grades, anything like that past your first semester in college because you now have a college GPA. And a lot of your high school club experiences may not actually represent what you're interested in now and your skills and talents. For example, I did speech and debate in high school, but I never actually did anything related to speech and debate in college. Although I did take a lot of transferable skills from my time in speech and debate, it wasn't really a passion or interest of mine anymore, and so I didn't feel like it was a great way to represent who I was on my resume. However, this definitely isn't an absolute rule. If you have some amazing scholarship or award, like winning an Intel Science Fair or something that I could never do, definitely mention that if that is still relevant to your career path. For example, if you're studying biology and you had a great biology-related science fair project, then by all means, it's relevant and it definitely proves your skill and passion for the field. But generally speaking, high school just doesn't really matter as much now that you're in college and you have more to show for yourself beyond your high school experiences. The second tip that I want to highlight is to not include experiences or positions that you're not interested in and that you definitely don't want to work in again. From a software engineering standpoint, if you don't want to work in web development anymore, but you only have web development experience, applying for your next internship, they may see that your strong suit is web development and in turn place you onto a web development or front-end facing team. Although I know this definitely can't be avoided, for example, if you only have one internship experience, either try to choose more neutral wording, so move from web development intern to just software engineering intern, and also try to diversify your previous experiences. If you were working on a front-end team, did you work with any middleware components to help expose yourself to more of the back-end elements? I don't want to label this as being a catch-all rule because depending on your experience and what you want to do, it can definitely make sense to include certain positions or exclude other positions. In general, just make sure that you're expressing interest in a particular technical stack or framework if you want to work in it. Another note that I want to add that may counteract this tip is that many hard technical skills, such as picking up a new programming language, can be easily learned on the job, but your skills of working on a team, knowing how to debug, grit, and code reviews are all experiences that can be more difficult to learn and are more valuable for you to possess. Just because you don't actually have experience in XYZ framework or XYZ language definitely does not mean that it's impossible for you to get a job doing that, especially if this is your first internship or job that you're applying for. Don't feel overwhelmed if the listing has a lot of technical requirements. As long as you know one language, it can be easy to pick up another. Tip number 3, highlight transferable skills. This is a really crucial part of getting your resume to stand out, especially if you don't have directly relevant experience and you're trying to break into a new field. So some common skills here are going to be soft skills like teamwork, communication, innovation, creativity, grit, as I mentioned earlier. These are always skills that are needed in any workplace, regardless of what you're doing. You'd also be surprised by how few people have strong people skills. Just by honing in on these skills, you can start to stand out against other candidates and even against people who may work at the company already. As I learned from some of my coworkers this previous summer, these people skills are really what separates the good engineers from the great engineers and the ones that are constantly getting promoted and moved up. All good engineers know how to code and program something, but a lot of great engineers can take their people skills to help move them further along in their careers. If you don't have any technical experience, such as an internship, you can get a job at a lot of related fields. Many schools will have these kinds of software engineering opportunities for you to try out. For example, at my school, we have plenty of research labs that are always looking for students, and we also have a few labs where students can go and actually get contracted software engineering work to work on. Additionally, I'm sure that many of your classes are looking for teaching assistants or learning assistants to help out, and being a TA is also a great experience and one that many recruiters actually are looking for on resumes. And even if this doesn't pan out and you don't get a job at your university, you can still look for other non-internship related experiences, such as working as a tutor for a computer science class or another subject, or being an instructor at a lot of different tech camps or online courses. 4 is to tailor your resume for the job. I'm sure you heard this one before, but I also really want to highlight one way in which you might not be utilizing tailoring your resume for the job. I'm sure you've heard this one before, but it definitely is an important one to highlight again. You wouldn't want to apply to a legal internship with the same resume you're using to apply to a software engineering internship. Instead, you would definitely think of different ways to highlight your experiences to make it relevant to what you're applying for. Similarly, applying for a software engineering role is going to be dramatically different for applying to a product management role. In this situation, when I was applying to both software engineering and product management roles, I didn't use the same resume for both. I used a completely different resume and different metrics for my work from previous experiences. So here, I could also see this being applicable if you're applying for both front-end engineering and back-end engineering roles. If these aren't just general software engineering roles, you may consider creating a different resume for each of these roles if you have enough experience and find it appropriate to do so. 5 is to think of your resume as an ad for a product, where the product is you. In essence, your resume is a product that advertises you and entices recruiters to actually talk to you. In the same way that good products make their users' lives easier and also add value, you need to make sure your resume tells a story about who you are and how you're adding value to whatever company you might be interviewing with. Similar to how products take a lot of time to grow and develop, you also need that time to grow and develop. I know I said that resume building really only takes a day or two, but also consider that experience is something that is accumulated and not something that is just linearly gained. So everyone's experience is going to be different, and don't try to measure yourself against other people all the time. 6, upgrade from a Microsoft Word document to a LaTeX or unique resume template. There are 2 factors to this. 1 is that Microsoft Word documents can be really hard to open, and 2 is that Microsoft Word just doesn't really have that much customizability. In my experience, and maybe I could totally be using Microsoft Word wrong, I really didn't find that much flexibility in using Microsoft Word to create my resumes. LaTeX or other unique resume templates that you can buy online from shops like Etsy can add a little something to help you stand out and better display your resume. There are plenty of free LaTeX resume templates online, and one site that I recommend using would be Overleaf. Another great site is Figma, which is typically used as a user interface prototyping tool, but it can also be used to help create your own unique template. 7 is to quantify, quantify, quantify. Probably sick of also hearing these words of quantify this experience on your resume, but it is really easy to just say, I worked on X using Y skills. This doesn't really show any of your impact at the company. I honestly wouldn't be able to tell if you actually ever got anything done at your previous experience. How did you actually add value? Did you actually add value to the team that you were working? So easy ways to quantify is to think about percentages, dollar amounts, customer served. If you're currently working and you need a little bit of help figuring out how to quantify your experiences, your manager or mentor are going to be great resources, and they should be happy to help you figure out how you can start to quantify some of your experiences here. How I got my first iteration of my resume was actually by asking my mentor and manager at my first internship. So I can definitely vouch for them as being valuable resources. 8, ask your friends and family for feedback. Hopefully your friends and family will provide you with honest feedback, and it's always great to get more pairs of eyes on your resume. If your friends and family don't understand something that you think should be obvious, then you should definitely go back and fix your resume. This is an easy way to get a lot of eyes on your resume and create changes that you may have tunnel visioned over while you're actually creating or reshaping your resume. Note that everyone will have different feedback, so take everyone's feedback with a grain of salt. This isn't always a perfect strategy, but it definitely helps to get you out of your bubble and receive more feedback. The 9th tip is to run your resume through an ATS scanner to see what is actually being parsed. So an ATS is an applicant tracking system, and this is a common way for a lot of companies to filter out their candidates. If a company is inundated with resumes and they don't have the recruiters to actually view every single resume by hand, many companies will throw these resumes into an ATS and start filtering out candidates based off of keywords or experiences. There are tons of online resources to help you do this, and this just gives you a brief feel of what your resume is representing of you. I'll link a few of these down in the description box below, so take a look if you need a little bit of help. Tip number 10, don't create lists on lists of obvious skills. So this was a tip that I was introduced to relatively early on when I was creating my resume, and it's a really helpful one if you haven't heard it before. A lot of the old resume tips that you'll find will say to highlight any skills that you have to help you stand out. Of course, by all means highlight these skills, but a lot of skills that are redundant now don't need to be highlighted anymore. So examples of this include basically all of the Office suite. These are the ones that I see commonly, and if you're working in the tech industry, you're pretty much expected to have some degree of competence with these technologies. You should also be relatively familiar with most tools and IDEs, and if you aren't, it shouldn't be too much of a hassle to learn. So you definitely don't need to put that you're proficient with Vim or VS Code, even though Vim users like to brag about it. If you're in tech, stick to highlighting hard skills such as relevant programming languages or libraries. Libraries are going to be more relevant if you're working in the AI ML side or data science side. Another thing that I see commonly is people listing out their soft skills. Soft skills are things that are really hard to actually quantify, so it's very easy to say that you have these skills, but it's much harder to prove that you're a good communicator or a good team worker. Instead of listing these skills under your skills section on your resume, look to show them instead. Highlight that you've worked on teams in the past, and especially prove to highlight these skills during the behavioral interview. Finally, also avoid having explicit levels for your resume skills. As a student, it's very unlikely that you're going to be advanced in C++ or Java compared to some programmers who have been using it for 20 or 30 years. Save yourself the hassle of actually categorizing these skills by level and just organize them by familiarity on your resume. These are my quick 10 tips on how you can improve your resume in just a few hours and make it go from looking okay to looking great. These are the most common mistakes that I see when I've reviewed my own resumes from the past and also some of my friends' resumes. Even if you don't need to update your resume at this moment, I'd highly encourage you to take a look and start slowly revising your resume in preparation for the next time you have to apply for jobs. If you like this video and want to see similar content, please like and subscribe to this channel for weekly uploads at Fridays, 9 a.m. PST. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Bye.